And welcome everyone to Sports Talk Line, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. And on today's episode of Battle for the Big East, we got someone who knows what it takes to win in the Big East. He has won 7 Big East Conference Tournament championships. He has won 3 NCAA national titles. In 2005, he was elected into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I'm talking about the man who helped build UConn men's basketball into a national powerhouse, Jim Calhoun. Coach Calhoun, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Tom. And I'm going to have to edit you one thing. One of the proudest things of my life, the national championships are great. But between the tournament and regular season, UConn won 17. And the reason I tell you that, everyone was a battle and everyone was so hard earned. And everyone was done in our neighborhood. You know, people we knew, coaches we knew. It's like, you know, winning the battle of your neighborhood or in your family with your brothers and stuff. So I'm incredibly proud because I truly am a great Big East believer.
Yeah, you know, I'm very glad you mentioned that. And trust me, I'll let you correct me if necessary. But one of the things I found very interesting too was in 1986, you're the head coach at Northeastern. At Northeastern, you were there for 14 years. You won 5 out of 6 conference championships your last years there. Why switch over from Northeastern to the University of Connecticut in 1986?
Well, it's a good question. And, you know, I had some offers from other schools. I looked at, I was involved with the Texas search, Northwestern, Big Ten. So I got a chance to, you know, to look at other places. But I'm a New England guy. I'm from Boston, and very simply, Dave Gavitt had set up a magical place. And I think that, you know, I love Northeastern. I had a great player, Reggie Lewis, God rest his soul, playing for me. We all coming back. We, you know, bottom line, we were really good. And there was no reason to believe we wouldn't continue to win. And obviously, UConn was going through a struggling time in its first 5 or 6 years in the Big East. But the Big East, you know, no other conference, and of course, I'm very biased about this, but could set up a meeting, my first one. You walk in and, hi, John Thompson, who I met when I was trying out for the Celtics many years ago. He was on the team. Or Jim Boeheim, Louis, Rolly, Rick Pitino, you know, Boeheim, PJ. You go down the list and you end up with the 9 of us, 6 of us eventually makes the Hall of Fame. And so if you want to, I shouldn't say prove, but prove that you want to be at the highest level in my neighborhood, Northeast part of the country, I took the great plunge. Last night, I was fortunate enough to do a tribute to D. Rowe, who was an incredible guy, gave Dave Gavitt his first job, a great coach at UConn, Worcester Academy. And I was just saying that you know, he saw what UConn can be, not what it was. And I guess he sold that dream to me, and I took the job in '86, and it was a big switch from Northeast in many ways, but it was something that worked out pretty good.
Yeah, I think all the UConn faithful will definitely agree with that, and they're glad you came to the University of Connecticut before Texas or Northwestern. How different the basketball universe would have been in that. But my second question is, you know, you kind of mentioned when you took over the UConn, you know, it wasn't the powerhouse, because you got to look at it too. You had John Thompson, Lou Carnesecca, you had all these Hall of Fame coaches, you had all these power programs. But one of the things, you know, you started chipping away and you started to get some victories. You started to get those wins. When did you notice it became easier to start recruiting players to UConn when you're a head coach?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, it never became easier, because you were always aspiring not to get just a good player, but to win in the Big East. You know, one of the things, and I'm going to deviate here just for a second, but, you know, you weren't coaching against all league players. Chris Mullin, Ray Allen, Allen Iverson, Mutombo. I can keep on going. They weren't just good players, good NBA players, Hall of Famers. Every night, it was somebody great, and 6 Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, it's 2 of the, you know, of your games you were coaching against. I had to coach against 5 guys who made the Hall of Fame twice a year. 10 of my games were coaching against Hall of Famers. A lot of my games were coached against Hall of Fame players. And I just think that, you know, it was magical, and always was. Every day was a fight and a battle, and I think all of us who were in it truly recognized that and took that. But I don't know if it became easier, but I'll tell you the truth, Tom, that the biggest secret I found, we could not do a good job of recruiting in the East. It was dominated in Philly by certainly Pittsburgh and Villanova, and New York City with St. John's and Seton Hall, and Georgetown was the country. Jersey was Seton Hall. And you go up and down the list, and you find that if we went away, and here's what I did initially, or we did, not I, sold the Big East. It's the hottest conference in the country. It was a have-to-watch TV, big Monday nights, 7, 9 o'clock games. And I used to tell kids, do you want to play in the Big East? Oh, I'd love to. And I'm saying, Coach Thompson or Coach Massimino or whoever has called you. Oh, no, they haven't. Oh, really? Yet you want to play in the Big East. How about coming to UConn? How about beating those guys? You get an opportunity to go to the greatest conference in America and get a chance to beat the people who haven't recruited yet, but I am. And we sold the Big East, and you think about it. Ray Allen, Dalzell, South Carolina. Donnie Marshall, Federal Way, Washington. And you go throughout the country, probably along with Georgetown, got the most national players, and all predicated on the genius and greatness of our fellow coaches, and obviously Dave Gavitt. We sold the Big East. Sold the Big East. And then, oh, by the way, we're in the Big East, and eventually we're going to win the Big East. And I think very simply, having the Big East, having the TV market sewed up, having great coaches to coach against, having the mecca of college basketball be Madison Square Garden, in all honesty, UConn was always mentioned, and they went on the visit, and we sold them. But we sold them on the Big East initially, and then UConn as part of the Big East.
Yeah, I think, you brought up a good point how back then everyone had those pockets where it used to be, I think, Lou Carnesecca used to say his recruiting budget was the tokens to the subway system. How many guys went there, and it was just like, they would get a lot of players. Syracuse also brought people in too. But as we switch over to, we're going to talk about the Big East tournament. And you won the Big East tournament 7 times when it's, iron sharpening iron. How much does the Big East tournament and winning the Big East tournament mean to you?
Magical. Some of the great things that ever happened to me in my coaching career of now into 50 years was magical at Madison Square Garden. Who wouldn't want to play on a semifinal game on a Friday night before 19,800 with 4 teams that are bigger than, in some ways, a Final Four semifinal? I remember the great video they had, Allen versus Allen, Ray versus Allen Iverson.
Yep.
And they show the subway. It's a classic, by the way, of all the people coming to Madison Square Garden. When you left the arena, the streets were magical. All 4 schools out there. It was, I know I'm sounding a little corny, and I hope I am, but it was in some ways basketball romantic. It was a test of the best versus the best. I honestly think, I almost feel, I know Big East is great now, by the way, but my point being, I almost feel those people who didn't experience going against virtually a Hall of Fame coach every night, Hall of Fame players virtually every night, it was special. I always remember in football, they talked about the great Southeast Conference, Alabama, et cetera. In basketball, the ACC certainly had a longer run, but nobody had the kind of run that the Big East had in that era from about 85 to, we won the championships in 9, 4, and 11. So Syracuse won in there too. Villanova won in there too. My point being, it was a special time in the most special conference in America. And, it's like the old Cheers thing where everybody knew your name. Mm-hmm. That's how it was. It just, I can still see our bus pulling up in the ramp under the Madison Square Garden, getting out, ready to go to war. And I mean war in a good way. The respect I had for those guys, the kind of situations, I remember Bill Clinton when we won our last championship with Kemba, being there. That's the kind of situation it was. The President of the United States was there. And I just think that the players, the competition, just the aura of the whole thing was special. And so I think there's nothing, in my opinion, in my lifetime, including national championships, which obviously a treasure, like the Big East tournament. I truly believe that.
Okay. And speaking about treasuring things, hopefully you go and hit that like and subscribe button and get all these videos for Battle of the Big East that we have with Jim Calhoun and a lot of great guests going forward. Now I'm going to segue though, because I'm a big, I'm in New York. I grew up in New York, played basketball, love Madison Square Garden. The Big East tournament means, I think, a lot. and you could be set up playing 4, maybe 5 games of tight competition all within a week. How do you go from winning the Big East tournament, and your 3 national championship teams won the Big East tournament and then won the NCAA title? How do you keep them focused from going from we're fighting our rivals to, all right, here we go, now we got to win it? Is there a letdown, or is it easy to keep them focused? Like, how do you do that?
Well, yeah, I think the thing is the constant. You know, the whole thing that hopefully leadership and coaches and teachers and educators and all those people involved with people is by putting sand, you know, out there every day, which eventually builds a mountain. Starts out a little molehill, gets to be a mountain. Every day we talked about different things that we could do. And I agree 100%. You walk into Madison Square Garden, electric. And now we're sent to Denver, Colorado. and you know, it's different. It's a different kind of world. But the goal is still the same. And we want to do magical stuff. And I truly believe that I sold that idea. Why not us? And I truly sold that. And especially in the early years when we'd come out of not being a great Big East team, played the old 8-9 game, we sold the dream. And the dream came true. I mean, I remember during those 5 games, 5 days with Kember and company in 2011, we said, you guys can go home. I'm going to kick your ass in practice. Well, you can give 19,000 people loving you, winning games here. And it was simply said, but the setup was, you know, was a daily thing at breakfast, walking by somebody, just planting the seeds of what was possible. Because, you know, once anybody who's involved in sport knows, once you get knocked out of a tournament, and especially a one and done tournament, over. We didn't want it to end. And I sold that dream that, you know, God gives us and life gives us only so many chances. Those magical moments. Why not us? And I think I sold that dream pretty good. And obviously, more importantly, I had great kids to sell that dream.
All right. Next up, question 5. How difficult was it to prepare for? One of the things I find interesting is you mentioned the NCAA tournament. You could go to Denver, Colorado. You know who that first opponent is. How difficult is it to turn around and prepare for that second opponent 48 hours later, whether it's an Elite 8 game, a Field of 32 game, or even an NCAA tournament? Like, do you start preparing during that 5 weeks before, trying to plan ahead, or you just go, you know what, let's take care of business the first game, let's win that game, and then let's spend the next 48 hours preparing for our next team? How do
you're coming to a combination of all the things you just said. I mean, during the season, I used to use blue cards. I'd be sitting here watching the game, and I'd see Duke. And we were at one time, let's say 99, we were running along at a real good pace. We were, I think, 22-1 or something at that time. They may have won 23 straight. We won 20 straight. And I'd look at Duke. I'd look at some other people, Ohio State, whoever it may be, who I thought we might play. And I put a little card away. I know what Duke's motion offense is about. They only wanted to play man at that time, what they want to do in the post. Put that away and keep watching them. And by the end of the season, could I get a surprise? Sure. But any team that was surprised hadn't done it consistently, so I wasn't quite as concerned about them. I tried to take away what we just saw them do to advance in the tournament. So I had a pretty good book on every single team we played, in all honesty, and I don't care what team it may be, we're well prepared. As prepared as normal scouting? No, but neither were they. And it's like anything else, you know. I remember someone telling me that they thought Emeka Okafor was good. And he was a great player, rookie of the year in the league, et cetera, in the NBA, and National Student Athlete of the Year. But until you played against a 6'10", 260-pound athlete, I don't care what the scouting report told you, it was different. And you can't practice against incredible players. And I think Ray Allen could shoot. I remember him getting 36 against UCLA in the Final 8, and as a sophomore. You can't practice against a guy that shot the basketball like him. And I do believe that, by the way. I truly believe that you got to be prepared, number one. You got to have a semi-book on every team, and we did. And we looked at all kinds of tape as we narrowed it down as it went from 64 to 32, et cetera. And you knew teams you wouldn't be hitting, so you hit the teams that were in your region. And then, most importantly, UConn was always going to do, I'm kind of an old school Vince Lombardi, Bill Belichick guy. We're going to do what we do. We're going to do our job. And we're going to come and rebound against you. We're going to run like hell against you. We're going to do certain things we did. And most of those games, you try to take away what they do best. But most of those games, if we do what we can do, That 99 team ended up 34-2. And by the way, in the great Big East. So we knew what we could do, and we did it well. We were a really tough team to beat, and obviously that 99 team beat a great Duke team. But we had a couple of advantages on them that necessarily didn't show up per se. We knew them, we exploited them down the stretch of the game and won the game. But I think very simply, preparation is a mindset. I know one thing, 50%, 60% of the battle is preparing us. And we were always well prepared. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew who we'd attack against them. We knew we'd try to take away. So the comfort level on our kids, I think, was very strong because we would start that, by the way. If we get to the tournament site, say Final Four, and going deeper in the tournament, we knew who we were going to play. And we knew one or two teams were going to play after that. 16, you had a pretty much better feel. I think, once again, you got to start with self-preparation. That eliminates an awful lot of it. And then you go to the other team.
Gotcha. So you focus more on what you do, and like even though you take those blue cards, you really don't pass along that information until it's put in stone. You put the Sharpie in and you move them on. I think that's a good coaching point. And speaking about good coaching point, one of your former players who is having a lot of great coaching success right now is Steve Pikiell. He went to Rutgers University, which has been down for a long time. He's reinvigorated the program. He made, it looked like they were going to be an NCAA tournament team if there was an NCAA tournament last year. And this year it looks like the same thing. How does it make you feel seeing Steve Pikiell being successful as a head coach and also being successful at a program where very few people have had that, counted that many victories in the last decades, to say the least?
Yeah, Steve Pikiell was a 3-year captain for me. Steve Pikiell was one of the best players from out of Connecticut, and we signed him in my first year. And very simply, Steve was an incredible leader. He tore his shoulder up about 100 different times. He never was quite the same player he was in high school because of the injury. But he was an incredible leader. And you know what? During those 5 years, he sat out a redshirt year because of the injuries, he saw us building the program. He saw us get to the, in year 5, he saw us get to a Final Eight and get beat by Christian Laettner. So he kind of knew the roadmap of taking a program and building it. And the same thing I just told you about tournament play is the same thing I told Steve. Matter of fact, we talked in the midst of his 3 or 4 game losing streak. Steve, what, coach? You guys are really good. Thanks, coach. But right now you're falling in love with your jump shot. That's not who you are. You're a tough, physical, running basketball team, great rebounding basketball team, terrific defensive team. That's who you are. Don't fall in love with your jump shot, or you'll cry at the end of the day, because that's not who you are. Oh, you can make jump shots, but it's after you do the things you do. And I think very simply, Steve kind of understands the same philosophy. He got really good players, now has terrific players, and I think it'd be really tough out when he gets to the NCAA tournament. And he's done an incredible job. And no guy have I really, I should say, I have plenty of guys, Dave Lato at DePaul, and a whole bunch of other guys who've gone on to coach and do very well. But Steve, started the whole thing when we started at UConn. He had a great idea. He stayed after that 2 years to get his master's degree at UConn. He was 7 years involved in our program. And from a really best love you can possibly have, watching something get built and then take your own ideas, as Steve has done, the great job he eventually does at Stony Brook, and then to become a terrific coach. And, his teams, when they play well, are really fun to watch. And boy, do they play hard.
Yeah, I think when you really look at Steve Pikiell's team, they might not be the biggest, but you can put them up as the toughest. And they are the throwback Big East team, to say the least. But now, we kind of mentioned a few of your alumni already, such as Ray Allen, Emeka Okafor, Steve Pikiell. During your time at UConn, what would be the all Jim Calhoun team? Now you can go to 5 to 10 players. I want to see, what Jim Calhoun says.
Yeah, I would have a guy transfer. The greatest player I had at Northeastern, and one of the greatest players ever played, God rest his soul, Reggie Lewis. So I would have had Reggie come for his last year.
That's the first one?
Yeah, because he was an incredible player. He could go by anybody. Michael Jordan, and I got to know Michael very well through camps and golf and other things. As I told Michael, said he had the best first step he ever saw. An incredible player, died obviously well before his time. But at UConn, the first name I think of is really Cliff Robinson. We just lost Cliff at 6'9", played 19 years in the league. He was a kid that really was never recognized for being the kind of player he was. What he was for UConn, he was a great player in the NBA, which gave us credibility with recruits. Mm-hmm. He really was. He played for me for 3 years. He won the NIT with a kid named Phil Gamble, and he was a great player first, and then got on those great Portland Trailblazers teams, and et cetera. With Cliff Robinson be right there. Secondly, name that people look on the record books, no one scorer all time, and a Bridgeport kid, Chris Smith, who could score on anybody. He scored like 2,500 points first, 4-year starter, played 6 years in the NBA, then some overseas. Was a great player, the kind of player, honestly, Tom, we needed at the time he came along. And his great line was, I got a lot of places I can go, North Carolina, others. Why don't I go home and stay in my home state? And was a great player. And then Danielle Marshall, probably the most multifaceted player, 6'9", 3 points, scored 11 3-pointers in an NBA game, long, rebounded, etc. By the way, our first McDonald's All-American. And was a great player for us, played 16 years in the league and came at an incredibly important time. Mm-hmm. Then I got to say Ray. Ray is in the Hall of Fame. He's the greatest shooter I ever coached. And he's still the all-time leading 3-point shooter in the NBA. And it was a special time for us. A lot of people in America wanted to be Ray Allen, which obviously did great things for us. After that, there's no question that the combination in 2004 of Emeka and Ben Gordon, number 2 and 3 in the draft. Emeka had an 11-year career. Was a rookie of the year. Probably didn't play with enough championship teams to get recognized into the Hall of Fame, but was terrific. And then Ben Gordon, who just was a 6'2" guy. We had 18 points a game in a 12-year NBA career. For us, made that 2004 team the best team basketball-wise I ever coached. And then Rip Hamilton, who was pretty special and helped win that 99 championship and did so many things and went on to win championships with Detroit Pistons, world championships, couple-time All-Star. A great, great basketball player. In my opinion, belongs in the Hall of Fame. World champ plus NCAA tournament MVP. And then the last guy would be Kemba Walker, who was special. Kemba Walker not only is a great player, but he's a special person. If I took that group, even me, could win a few games. That's a pretty good group. And all of them have accolades, national championships, world championships. And there's so many guys who were right there, Scotty Burrell and Caron Butler, so many great players I've had. Yeah. When I have to look at a list, I can keep talking all day about them and I'll still be here talking. You can come back 2 hours from now, but they were great players. And, sometimes the coach is fortunate to have good things happen. Mm-hmm. Having those guys was a lot more than having just good things happen. See, the great thing about coaching and the greatest aid a coach has is a player who will listen. Mm-hmm. And I mean it honestly. My kids bought into what we were selling, and obviously they made UConn a whole different place.
Yeah, I'll say that. And just listing off your teams, a last second shot, I'm giving the ball to Kemba and I'm letting him create, because I think the cardiac Kemba moment against Pittsburgh, I think stands out as one of the iconic moments in Big East tournament in college basketball history too. But hey, if he gets double teams, he can dish it off.
Well, all I know simply, he'd make the right decision. And the shot against Pittsburgh was a simple switch and a pick and roll. He gets the big guy, gives him a shake, he falls down and Kemba makes the shot. We saw that enough times during his career. He's obviously a very special person, very special player. I think of looking back upon my 50-year career and thinking about Tom, I'm just so fortunate to have the kids I have. And I don't think as many days go by during a week that I don't talk to, I just talked to a kid the other day, some of my former players will call me and I'll get a call from Jerome Dyson, terrific player for us, and had a great European career. Josh Powell. I mean, you name it. I get calls from all these kids, and when I use that term, they'll always be my kids, and I'll always be part of UConn.
Yeah, and lastly, before we go, because your coaching career didn't end at UConn, you went to ESPN for a little bit, but you came back and you went to St. Joseph's College to become the men's coach there. Now, why did you choose to go to St. Joseph's College? And also, I don't know if you feel comfortable, have any other bigger programs reached out to you?
Well, Yeah, when I first get out, I had some people call me and things. I just wasn't interested. I really did. I think that during that run of 26 years at UConn, it took a lot of energy and it took a lot of separation from my wife, my family, not as much as I want. Oh, I should, when I say that, remember, but everything we did then was tied to UConn basketball, going overseas, all the great things I was able to do. So it wasn't just that. I just thought my time had run out. I was injured. I was banged up a little bit physically. Mm-hmm. And those years in ESPN gave me the idea that I'd go to a game and, be excited about the competition. But I had no sweat in my palms. I didn't have skin in the game. And I missed it. And a friend of mine was trying to look for a coach. I tried to help him. And then I found me. And I went back first year, 16 and 12, and good kids, all freshmen. That was our first year in history of 93 years at St. Joe's with basketball. And it worked out 16-12, went to the championship game of the league. And last year we were 26 and 3, won 25 in a row, and made the NCAA tournament, won our league 14-0, had terrific kids. And, I tell people that, the game is the game, the kids are the kids, and competition is the competition. And no one could ever enjoy it more than I did. Kids are kids, the game's the game. And so whether it be 100 people at some place, or 500 at St. Joe's, or 20,000 at the XL Center, the game is the game, the kids are the kids, and I love it.
No, I think that's the best way to end the episode. Any documentary I'm ever going to air about basketball, I need this little cut right here from Coach Calhoun. Coach Calhoun, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you. And for everyone at home, listen like you play with intensity.